Hello, beautiful people. My name is Athol. Let's jump into it. And today I'm going to talk about what we actually do with anxiety and how to make it better and how to make it so much easier to manage. So, as I've talked about before, the whole point of anxiety is to make you super vigilant, super aware of your surroundings, what might happen that might go wrong, and you taking steps to make sure that the bad things don't happen to you. The whole point of anxiety is to make sure bad things don't happen. The first step in how do we deal with elevated levels of anxiety is to start making that connection between that high level of anxiety is starting to cause bad things happening itself. So she might have a real fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment, and a sort of a deep, dark fear that relationships just blow up and end at random and she's powerless to stop them. Like, these are her core fears. So she's really anxious about relationships. So any hint that the relationship isn't going perfectly, any little smidgen of feeling or thought that he doesn't quite care or isn't quite paying attention or isn't quite clued in, she sees that and she feels that, and it hits her deep fears, and then she reacts to it. And this is where she becomes a control freak. This is where she becomes really emotional, which the real variable nastiness can come in. And all these things are really negative, toxic things to be injected into your relationship on a consistent basis. And then for the guy, for the husband, faced with all this sort of negative barrage of words and verbal hostility and all these accusations and claims that he's not a good guy or doesn't love her in this tiny little box that she puts him in, that he's allowed to live in and do things. These are all the things that make him go, oh my God, I don't want to be here anymore. I mean, I really love her and she's really hot and I really think she's sexy, but I just can't take it anymore. I just can't take it. So it's your own fears causing the anxiety, and it's the anxiety that's turning into all this really negative behavior, and it's the negative behavior that makes them want to get out of there. The high level of anxiety is causing bad things happening. Once you get that as the starting point, everything becomes a whole lot easier, because now, rather than focusing on the negative behavior as the problem, we're seeing all these as symptoms, as effects of the problem, and the real problem is the anxiety. So it's just exactly like a 1 or 2 year old kid having a temper tantrum, having this meltdown. Is their behavior bad? Is it pretty sucky? Is it intolerable? Yes, it is. But the problem is they haven't had a nap. So when we go to deal with the little kid that's having a meltdown because they haven't had a nap, we aren't going over the top on what their behavior was. We aren't telling them that they're a terrible person. We aren't trying to sanction them. We aren't putting them in kid jail or whatever we do. It's just, all right, you've had enough. It's time for your nap. The solution is the right solution for the problem. They haven't had a nap, so let's give them a nap. It's exactly the same with anxiety. It can come with all these negative behaviors, but we're going to focus on the anxiety itself as the problem. And going back to what I talked about yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, all this negative behavior, all these unreasonable expectations, all these unreasonable requests, unreasonable tones of voice, these are all inappropriate, and they are all fitness tests. And the guy is, not only is he right to and allowed to, and he must deal with these fairly directly. He can't allow himself to be just stomped all over and yelled at and screamed at and be threatened and be told to act like her minion. That way is just doom and destruction for him. He has to say something, but very quickly, when he is pushing back on that fitness test, it is not so much you are acting like a screaming witch. It's far more, you don't really seem to be happy with all this, and I can see you're feeling upset, but it really doesn't seem like you're managing your anxiety well today. You see how that changes? It's not that she's this awful attack raptor that's screaming and screeching. It's you don't seem to be managing your anxiety well today. That frames the anxiety as the true problem. And because you're not calling her out directly on all the little bits and pieces of her negative behavior, she doesn't have to defend herself quite so much. And because you're seeing the anxiety as the true problem, it means you're taking all this negative behavior that she's doing a lot less personally. So she may be screaming and yelling at you that you're this terrible person because you showed up 5 minutes late to pick her up. But you're taking that a lot less personally because you're like, I know she gets really anxious. She has all these abandonment issues. When I was trapped in traffic for half an hour and I knew I was going to be late, I knew she was going to be upset. And I knew why she was going to be upset. And I knew it wasn't really much about me. It's about all her childhood fears. It's about her first couple of boyfriends. And it's all just feelings she's going to have. You take it so much less personally. From her point of view, all these feelings are real. These are real experiences really happening to her. And from her point of view, what she feels is she feels like he's not paying attention. She feels like he's not being responsible. It feels like he doesn't care about you. It feels like he doesn't love you. He doesn't love you. It feels like he's not invested in the relationship. He doesn't care. He's not connected. He's not committed. It feels like he might leave at any point and you're powerless to stop. Once you can recognize that you actually have an anxiety problem and that sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes you overreact, sometimes you go off the deep end and you're screaming and yelling about stuff, sometimes your feelings, even though they're real, are not the true reflection of reality. So you may be over here having this tornado of dark thoughts about what he thinks and feels and what he's doing and why. And over there, he's probably a good guy that's just maybe not perfectly paying attention, but he's certainly not trying to be disrespectful or hurt you or blow things up or kick out a fight. If anything, sometimes when he's acting a little distant and not like he's paying that much attention, maybe he's still licking his wounds from the last time you wailed on him about something. So if you can start seeing, okay, I get anxious about things and sometimes you overreact, and over there is a different person who is acting and reacting in their own way, it can mean you can start taking what he does less personally because you are now focusing on the anxiety as the actual problem. And if you can both be doing this at the same time, it makes things so much easier to deal with because the starting point is it's a recognition that something is going off the rails here, and then the next move is checking in. Hey, how are you? What's going on? From him, it doesn't look like you're feeling good. What's up? From her point of view, it's just verbalizing. Hey, I'm feeling really, really anxious, and I'm just sort of starting to emotionally spin about you being 5 minutes late. What was going on? Why were you late? You see how that's a totally different experience for him than you're late again, you're a jerk, you don't care, it's just like the last time, I'm sick of living with you, you're the problem, blah, 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 pinch, 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 poke, poke, poke. So much different to actually say, hey, I'm just anxious, what's happening? Because then that allows him to react so much less defensively and give you the reassurance that you're actually looking for. And he may have a perfectly legit reason as to why he was 5 minutes late or whatever the thing was. Or he may simply not be aware that you were feeling emotionally upset, that you were starting to spin a little. which then gives them the opportunity to connect and reach out and give you some warmth, love, affection, whatever. And that may be all you need to sort of make yourself feel better and make the anxiety go away. See, if one or both sides of the couple can start doing this, it just starts derailing all these fights about little tiny inconsequential things before they really get started. Because you're going to keep coming back to the anxiety itself as the problem. So, where are we with this? Ba-ba-bum. Yeah, and sometimes there are things you can do to change the situation. There are things you can do to make things better. And sometimes it is just giving a little extra emotion, an extra warmth, extra affection, the reassuring hug. And sometimes you just have to feel anxious and do nothing. I know that sounds overly simplistic. Sometimes you just have to feel anxious and do nothing. You can admit to yourself that your feelings are not always aligned with reality, but that doesn't mean you always have to do something about them, because you're recognizing that you get really anxious. And that's the problem, not necessarily that something didn't happen to make you feel less anxious. Slowly over time, as you communicate a lot better, as you do the little workarounds that you can do to not trigger particular levels of anxiousness, and as you sometimes just live with the anxiety a little bit, and then bad things don't happen, obviously, slowly over time their levels of anxiety can come down. They can be more manageable. And it's a slow, steady process. If, like I say, if your anxiety is up at a 6 out of 10, it's just a general thing, it may take several weeks or months for it to drift down to a 5. And then it may take several weeks or months to drift down to a 4. And that's okay. It's not all going to fix instantly. But I think you find the worst parts of anxiety are all the negative side effects around the fights and the accusations and acting out on all the negative feelings, rather than saying, I have a problem with all these negative feelings. Let me find out what's going on. So, that's about it for today. And I will... Tomorrow is Memorial Day, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. But yeah, I will definitely talk to you soon.